All right. John, you do not need an introduction from me. Everybody knows you, and they've heard your stories. And like everybody else, I'm so anxious to hear more. So I'm going to skip the introduction and just let you go right into it.
Okay, but I've got a problem. I don't see. You know, Catherine. I had a problem with my computer. They cloned the hard drive. Oh, I see share now. I'm sorry. Okay, share. Boom. Share. Womp. Can you see on your screens?
Yes, but we have your desktop.
You're right. I'm going to go to the meeting part right now. Start from the beginning. Okay. Is it filling your screen now?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. This is about Gonioceras. I mean, cephalopods are so diverse, and you got wackadoodle cephalopods in the ammonites, the heteromorphs. Some of you know about that. Um, well, the nautiloids have some weird ones too, and I think Gonioceras is about the weirdest one. Now, I have never done a program on Gonioceras because here in the Platteville, we essentially got only one species. And obviously, we're going to talk about that quite a bit. But back in the day, here's one of my stories, Catherine. Way back in the day, Larry Osterberger and I used to go to the Field Museum Library to do research on collecting sites. Some of you knew he has passed away, Larry. Back in the day, you could park in that west parking lot of the Field Museum, no problem, and then just walk in. You say, "I want to go to the library." Okay, there you go. Went upstairs. What they used to do at the library is have tables that had obscure foreign journals. And just by chance, one of them is, and I'll show you that the title page was on the cephalopods of northern Greenland. And I looked through it. There was a two-volume thing, text and plates, 65 gorgeous plates. And paged through it, and oh my God, the number of Goniosauruses was amazing. Well, it wasn't until a year ago or so that I got a copy of that. It took that long to get it. And then I got the one, Catherine, that we were talking about on the Oncosterid one with aperture up, aperture down. Well, I got that one from Hall that had the various up and down apertures. We'll talk about that too in a bit. So this is what I finally said, there's enough material here to make Gonioceras a subject. You'll see it when I show you all the different forms and everything it's an amazing animal. We're obviously talking about the Ordovician. That's pretty much what all I do is play on the Ordovician. A little bit about cephalopods. Here's the list of cephalopods in groups. Here's the nautiloids. 99% of the nautiloids are extinct, but Nautilus and Alonautilus, they're still around. Not many people can say that. Trilobite people, you can't say that. Nautiloid people, you can say that. The Bactrids are a transition group, and I'll show you that in just a minute. The Ammonoids, of course, are all extinct. There's many different groups of them. I got the main groups here. I didn't put heteromorphs in because they're really not sure what to do with them. And then there's the coleoids, in which there's the belemnites. A lot of you have collected belemnites, those torpedo-shaped things, or the inside of the animal. And they're extinct, but decapods and octopods, of course, are the major cephalopods we have today. Now, a little bit about cephalopods. I haven't done this in years about the origin. We'll go through it fairly quickly. Cephalopods, and of course, I'm talking about nautiloids, originated in the late Cambrian. They probably evolved from septate monoplacophorans. Now, you say to yourself, how long did the septate monoplacophorans last? Believe it or not, there's one in the Platteville. It doesn't look like the cones that you have in the Cambrian and Lower Ordovician, but it's a curved gastropod, and at the end there are septa there. There are chambers, no siphuncle, but chambers. The oldest recognized true cephalopod is Plectronostris cambrii. Um, there was a paper that reported cephalopod-like things in the lower Cambrian of Newfoundland, but nothing else has been coming out of that, and there's been a lot of controversy. So we're going to go with what we know for a fact Plectronostris is. The shells were originally curved, certiconic, but they had the siphuncle on the inside of the curve. And here you go. Here's Plectronostris cambria. I think these are the holotypes here. And here's a diagram of it. Notice the size. This is 1 millimeter. They were tiny little puppies, but they had a siphuncle, a working siphuncle. Okay. And it's a certified, it's a curved shell. Straight shells came much later, and they needed ballast to be in the water column. They needed a ballast to stay horizontal, and that's they Russo Flower and Teichert did work on this. Russo Flower had a seminal paper in 1956 that set everything out, changed every idea about straight nautiloids. The reason they photographed them straight, the fossils, is because they thought they lived vertically. Au contraire, mon ami. Coiled shells are the most efficient, obviously. Look at Nautilus and Alonautilus are coiled. There was a diverse nautiloid fauna in the late Cambrian. Extinctions reduced, and I'll show you that. The extinctions reduced the fauna to two genera that went into the Ordovician, and then boom, they exploded. Success of the nautiloids. Neutral buoyancy. Now, everybody calls it neutral buoyancy, and it is about, but it's slightly negative. Why? Here's a cephalopod. If it was positively buoyant, it would to go back down, it would have to keep its siphon pushing water out to keep it. But negative buoyancy on the reef goes out, just lets itself float to the bottom. Slight negative, but neutral buoyancy is good enough. The chambered shell is compartmentalized the liquid. The siphuncle removes liquid, replaced by low pressure gas. That gives it the buoyancy that it needs. Still not certain how siphuncle evolved, although I'm trying to think who's been working on it. Mudvie has been working on how the siphuncle. He's getting close. Advantages. Neutral buoyancy gave nautiloids, and here's my Worf impression, a tactical advantage. It did. Peter Ward, in one of his popular books on cephalopods, had a very dramatic. Here's this trilobite. All of a sudden, it's looking forward, looking for things that are going to hurt it. All of a sudden, from the top, here comes a cephalopod. Whomp! Never saw it. You see, it was a little melodramatic, but that's you got to know Peter Ward. Allowed utilization of the water column, which hadn't been done much. Filling empty marine ecospaces with little competition, equipped with grasping appendages, not just, feet, the appendages. And here is diagrams. This is a Silurian cephalopod on the right here. Um, Apparently, this when they cut it, this is the way these were the natural colors of the minerals that replaced it. Everything's different. Here's the chambers. Here's the siphuncle. Down here is the septal foramen, rings and neck. You can see these are just a bit expanded. Whereas if those of you that were here for the oncocerid, you know that the oncocerid siphuncle are very expanded, like little beads, like I said. And here's a basic nautiloid morphology, the bow plan of a nautiloid, a straight-shelled nautiloid. Although, as we found out in the last program, straight shells were not the most common in a lot of faunas. Diverse Lake Cambrian nautiloid fauna, four orders, only one survived. 36 genera, only two survived. 130 species, only two survived. Not a good time for cephalopods. Clarkoceras and Ectinolides were the ones that survived. And this is from Chen and Teichert. I met both at different times. Chen he's the one, he defected to what was it? The fauna that is equivalent of the Burgess Shale fauna. He's been on Nova. You notice him because he's the very tall young Chinese man with a yellow slicker on. Always has his yellow slicker because it often rains there. I digress. Here's all of the cephalopods, and you can see down here, where's my, there it is. There's Ectinolides and Clarkoceras. Clarkoceras was a very common lower Ordovician genera, huge number of species. I found a bunch of them when a couple of us were over in Missouri collecting. Post-Cambrian success. Ordovician, taxonomic and shell-shaped diversity exploded. There's no other way to say that. Ballast provided maneuverability of straight shell forms, diverse shell shapes, diverse lifestyles. We showed that in the Onchoceras program, where the Onchocerids dominated, but they didn't go in the water column. They could jump up and down. We call that saltation, but they didn't have technically neutral buoyancy. Active predators, ambush predators, that's Gonioceras, grazers, filter feeders, coil nautiloids obviously are the key to continued success because the gas-filled chambers are located above the animal. You don't need ballast. It's like a hot air balloon for these coil guys. Obviously it's an incredible design because they're still alive. This was an optimal design. Nautilida became the dominant nautiloid order. I think they popped up in the Silurian. We'll see in a minute. And it culminated in the extant Nautilus and Alonautilus. And those of you that have seen, if I've seen the living animal at the or at the Shed Aquarium, they don't. It's hard to keep. But if mostly of you've seen the Nautilus shells, what an engineering marvel those shells are. It's just they're incredible. Now, after the Cambrian, here's the early Ordovician. Three orders. The original are the Elsmerocerids that came from the Cambrian. The other three went belly up. Here's Endocerids and Tarficerids. Now, from the early Ordovician to the Platteville, look at the look at the incredible increase in taxonomic diversity. My God, look at the number of orders and families. It's amazing. Same um, uh, groups, planktonic, benthic, et cetera. But look at the number of here's the Lillywheddy are the only well the major heteromorph of the nautiloids. They start as a tightly coiled and then go straight. They're in Germany and China. I have both. Now, here's a thing. This is Russo Flowers. In 1964, the same year the treatise came out, he had his from New Mexico, nautiloid shell diversity. There's a story there. This one I'm not going to tell because it's not a very nice story. But this is Russo Flower. Who knew more about nautiloids nobody, ever. Okay? You see all the different nautiloids. Here's the number 10 is the little whiteys. Number 10 is little cone. But there's something missing here. Nobody ever puts this in. The Gonioceroid. Okay, I made that name up, but anyway, there's a guy. Nobody ever puts that in their shell shapes ever. And there's, I mean, it's not the only one. There's Lambeosaurus too. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, here's Mary Wade, Professor Mary Wade. Oh my God, she's the one that I never met that I wanted to meet. She was the word brilliant doesn't do her justice at all. She put this up in the Russo Flower Memorial Volume, and she separated. These are my titles up here, but she separated the nautiloids into basically two groups. Now, based on information she did not have, we believe now that two of the orders belong on this side. And in fact, the truncated guys, the Ascosoroids, actually evolved from the Onchocercids like Beloidoceras and Zitaloceras and Richardsonoceras. But she didn't have that information. She didn't know that. So now, what's on this side? Straight-shelled nautiloids and Gonioceras. What do they look like? Well, they led to the Bactrids. They led to the Ammonoids. They led to the Coleoids. So we're thinking they probably had 10 undifferentiated fleshy arms, like the Coleoids. More about that in a minute. On this side well, there's the Onchocercids that we talked about, Tarfisurids, blah, blah, blah. Here's the Nautilida. Yeah, they arrived in the Silurian. Um, these had tentacles like Nautilus because, well, there's Nautilus up here. They have the tentacles, like 80, 90, whatever it is. Now, is this accepted? More than I thought, some of the recent papers on ammonites, Jurassic and Cretaceous, show restorations with 8 fleshy arms like octopus, but with 2 tentacles like squid. That's what the restoration is back in the Jurassic and the Cretaceous. This is becoming more and more acceptable. And the main thing is the Mazon Creek Jedlicskaya fossil. You look at it, a good fossil. The holotype was incredible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 arms. Are they different? They're exactly the same. That's how it started. Now, what other proof do we have? I know I'm going too long in this, but embryology. Every cephalopod, including Nautilus, starts out with 5 pairs of arm buds. That's 10. Now, pair number 2 are either assimilated or disappear, giving you the octopods. The 4th pair are transformed into tentacles with only suckers on the heads, the clubs, I guess they call them, at the end of the. So a lot of speculation, but oftentimes it comes out true. Now let's get to the two areas we're going to talk about: the Midwest and then Greenland. Midwest, I've done this before. Most of you know this. Mohawkian series from the Mohawk River in New York. Platteville rocks from Platteville in Wisconsin. Mostly dolostone. Contains a diverse and abundant fauna. Most people that are, even those that collect, are shocked by the number of critters we have in the Platteville. It just boggles the mind. Oh, or if you remember the Ancaster when I showed that one plate that I got at the Beloit West Quarry, which had like 12 Ancasteras, 13 gastropods, and 3 clams. Uh, wow. Nautiloids, snails, clams, brachiopods, blah, 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 trilobites, bryozoans are most common. It's often referred to as the Gonioceras fauna. Gee, really? Fauna is concentrated in 3 rock units: the Mifflin member, which stands by itself. It has four facies. Um, and I've talked about them all before. The femur is geographically restricted. The residuum has shell on it, which is not good for taxonomic stuff. The limestone, you can get the stuff out. The shells are still there. They're in the rock. Break what you want. You're going to break all the fossils. So don't bother. Then there's dolostone, where the shell is gone. There's an airspace. Hit the rock. The nautiloids just fall out. All right, not exactly, but you get the idea. You can get them out easy. All right. The Grand Detour has two fossiliferous units, the Cowan bed and the Forreston bed. And my God, the Forreston. It's just, it defies description. There was that one quarry, Beloit West, John Pagetta and Joe, not Joe, Jimmy, and I did a paper. They went out to West Coast for the oncology, macological, whatever the thing is, the shell thing, conference. In that quarry, there are 48 species of mollusks alone. Uh, One quarry. Here's okay. This is I don't always put this in because the orange is the global Sanbian, which we can compare with all over the world. The upper part of the Upper Ordovician is Sanbian. The rest, like you get over in Cincinnati, is Catchian or Catchin, however they pronounce it. Mohawkian is the North American series. Most people know about Mohawkian. Not everybody knows about Turinian and Chatfieldian. They were introduced, if I remember correctly, in a 95 conference on the Ordovician in Las Vegas. I was there at that one. And then, of course, here we have the Platteville. I put in a few things like the Dikey but well, there's a better chart in just a minute. Okay, here's the white is a distribution of Ordovician rocks in the Midwest. Um, there's a couple of islands here. Up here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, there's an island of Ordovician, mainly Macocata, but Ordovician. Down here, there are road cuts that they use. They've been pretty much overgrown now, but back in the day, the field trips are you could go on one road cut and go from the lower order, or no, from the St. Peter Sandstone all the way up to the Macocata in one road cut as the road goes up section. Amazing. And not very much now. That was in Iowa. Now here's the chart. This is the chart that occurred in Wilman and Colada, 78 at the Illinois Survey. Now, Dennis changed the stratigraphic units because he wanted to put it into be coordinated with Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin. So the Platteville is now a formation. Now here's the ones. Here's the Mifflin and the Grand Detour. These are members. Then here's the beds. None for Mifflin. It's too thin. The Cowan and the Forreston. Now there's an unnamed K bentonite that occurs occasionally between the Mifflin and the Grand Detour. For some reason, nobody bothered to investigate it. I know of at least two places where it was very well, I'll show you one right now, very well preserved. Um, Here it is. This is now, I never usually said because, I had permission to go in that quarry and I was about the only person that could. It's the Byron Quarry. Well, early this collecting season, I got a shock. The quarry was sold. Not only was I shocked, apparently, the employees didn't realize that was happening. And so I had, what's her name? I can't think of her name now. A very nice young lady working at the scale. I said, ask the bosses to ask the new owners if they would allow collecting. Well, I think you know the answer to that one. No. Anyway, this is a great section because it has to be a little bit weathered to show the type, what you're dealing with in these rock units. Look at the Mifflin and the Pecatonica. A lot of clay. Look at the color. let's go up to the Grand Detour and the Chusa. Cumbies Mill is up here, but it's not exposed at this quarry. Um, a lot different. A little bit of clay here. That's what gives the Stillman bed its characteristics. Here's Cowan and Forreston. Amazingly, at this quarry, Grand Detour is not very good. Kath and I were here in the early 70s, and before this part was excavated, and we went out without anything. So I just ignored this quarry, but then I went back and checked. Sure enough, and the Mifflin is really good there, but not anymore. But notice this. This is what's called, I know they are bushes. I talked about this before, but the term is grassy layer. Why? This is a bentonite. A bentonite is a volcanic ash that has changed to clay, an illite. I think it's an illite clay, but I'm not sure. Um, and things grow there. So that tells you, hey guys, look, there's a bentonite there between these two rock layers, and it's growing things. Again, grassy layer, an unnamed cave bentonite. Well, it is what it is. Believe me, if you research it, there are got to be over 100 bentonites in the Ordovician of the Midwest. It's amazing, but there you are. The Mohawkian Sea environment. Again, I've gone over this, so let's go quickly over it. Shallow, warm water, open marine carbonate platform, well oxygenated. Duh, you're going to have critters there with normal salinity, in situ shell accumulations. They didn't get transported far. You guys have seen my programs, how beautifully these are preserved. They didn't get transported and get banged up and knocked up. Look at the Dixon with the shell still on. You're not going to get the shell preserved like that by being whacked on by waves or something. Oops, that was two. Located in central Laurentia, which is North America, south of the Paleo Equator, located in the southeast trade global wind belt. Florida and South are located in the northeast trade wind belt, which is why hurricanes go the way they do until they get to the westerlies, and then they shoot on out towards the Atlantic. Occasional influx of volcanic ash. I just said that. Home of the Gonioceras fauna. Yeah, I'm making a big deal of it. Now here's Laurentia during the late Ordovician. Wisconsin Arch, Mohawkian Sea. Here's the wind belt. I should have put the other wind belt in here going the opposite direction. Remember, this is hard when you're first studying winds. Winds are named for their source region. So the southeast trade winds come from the southeast and go to the northwest. Okay, so here's the orogenic belt spewing out ash. Well, here's the wind belt. Gee, I wonder where the ash is going to go to. It's going to go into the Mohawkian Sea. Here's the hurricane tracks. I put them closer to the equator than we have now because the Earth is spinning. At the Ordovician was spinning a bit faster, so the hurricanes would form a little bit closer to the equator. Can't form on the equator, of course, but they're a little closer, and then they came down. So there were hurricanes. We do have sediment deposits that would come in. In they go, and they would cover the critters, and they would fossilize. The Gonioceras fauna, exceptionally diverse and abundant fauna. Common are brachiopods, trilobites, bryozoans, and corals. Echinoderms are also present. Dennis Clyde did his dissertation on Platteville and Galena echinoderms. God, he found the stuff he found just blows your mind away. You can get his on PDF. You can get the Paleo Society Journal of Paleo published his as a memoir, his dissertation. And if you look at the pictures in there, you're just gonna you're just gonna freak out on these things. Mollusks are particularly diverse. Duh. Gastropods, 28 genera, 34 species. Now these are all published. These are all published. Okay. Clams, 14 and 20. Nautiloids, 9 plus orders, 28 and 50 species. Oh, no. Wow. I wonder why I got into them. Gonioceras occidentale Hall is present in Platteville Rocks, and probably only that group and equivalents. When you get into the Galena, you're into Lambeosaurus. I'll show you that in a minute. Gonioceras occidentale is most common in Forreston Bed rocks. Oh my God. The number that I found in the Beloit West Quarry. And Jimmy did too. In fact, I got one, and Tom Williams got one from a third party that Jimmy collected. I knew Jimmy well. We collected together, so I knew where these were found with no problem. So I got one, and Tom got the other one. Now, here's the new stuff. This is what all of a sudden I got these books. What you can't, yeah, you can still see me. I can show them later, but here they are. Here's the two volumes right here that I got finally. A bookseller that I know, he said, "I've got some new stuff." He said, "I'm going to send out an email to my." He says, "But I think you need to take a look at the Ordovician stuff." And I I emailed him back and I said, "Sold." He said, "I haven't told you how much." I don't care how much. I got that in another publication by Miller, and he had them for $60. I'd have paid 200. Washington Land, Greenland. I don't know why they call it Washington Land, and I did. I did my best to find out everywhere I could. Nobody told me why it's called Washington Land in Greenland. All right, Cambrian, Ozarkian, Ordovician, exposed between the Humboldt Glacier and Cape Calhoun. And believe me, you can only go collecting there at certain times, and there's nobody living there. So you need to take everything with you if you're going to go collecting up there. I'll show you the map in a minute. The series dips slowly northwest. Niagara rocks are exposed north of Cape Calhoun. So it's a Paleozoic, lower Paleozoic area. Okay, now, yes, these are Danish words. We have to get used to it. The Morris Bay Group, Gonioceras Bay Formation. Okay, now it's named after Gonioceras Bay. Gee, I wonder what they find there. And they do the same thing we do. We had good rocks at Platteville, Wisconsin. Okay, let's call them Platteville rocks. Mifflin, Iowa. There's good rock. Oh, let's call them the Mifflin. I mean, everybody does the same thing. Gonioceras Bay Formation is Black River. Uh, Tridson Cliff Formation is Black River-ish. Cape Calhoun is Upper Ordovician into the Red River, the Arctic fauna. I did a program on that, I think, for ESCONI too. And then I can't pronounce this. Fjord Formation, Late Ordovician, Early Silurian. Okay. Now, these are from different papers. I just found more advanced, and so the 1980 is what I want to talk about. Here's the map from 1989. Here's the index map. Here's the study. Ellesmere Island. It's just, I mean, as long as you're there, you might as well just go across the strait and collect in Ellesmere Island. Because why do you think they call them the Ellesmere Osterids? They were found on Ellesmere Island. Let's go collecting. Anyway, I digress. Here is the map of Washington land. Cape Calhoun, Gonioceras Bay, and here's the Morris Bay, which was used as the group name. And you can see it down here. This is the 1989 revised Morris Bay, Gonioceras Bay, and Trutzen are part. They're members of this formation right here, the Cape Jackson. Now, here's the older version, but this is a section. What I want to go through is this. This is Trutzen 1926, which is the publication that I've got here. They only recognized at that time Gonioceras Bay, Cape Calhoun. Well, in the paper 1980, they recognized Gonioceras Bay, a new one, Trutzen Cliff Formation, Cape Calhoun, and this is the upper, probably Maquoketa group from basically the Red River up to the Maquoketa. Okay, so but here's what we have. This is all we had at that time. You guys and Guyets all know how they changed stratigraphy. They changed my Platteville number of times, and I always said, change, call it what you want. Call it Bob if you want. I don't care. I'm getting the same fossils. Doesn't matter what you call it. Anyway, Gonioceras Bay, Cape Calhoun fauna. Diverse in cephalopods, gasteropods, and trilobites. Deficient in plesiopods. Now, I'll explain to you the why these books came out in 26, but I've got the second volume also in PDF. In the entire book, you know how many plesiopods they have listed? One. Yeah, blew my mind. And that genus has got a question mark by it. They're not sure of which one it was. There's huge number of cephalopods and gastropods, and the trilobites, as you're going to see right now, look at the trilobites. Bumastis milleri, Isotelus. Gee, they sound awfully familiar. We have these here. Uh, Trachonema umbilicatum. That's the Platteville Trachonema. Plectophorus forest, they gave it a different name. Endoceras, Gonioceras holtoni. Same thing we have. Here's Cape Calhoun. Once again, Trachonema, Thaliops, Isotelus, Elanus, Bumastis, Sororis. Same stuff. So this correlates really well with our Platteville and upper, when you get up in the higher ones, the Galena. So this is what made me think, hey, look, this is the same kind of stuff. Same thing's going on. If you look at where North America is, you may be in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, but you're in the same biozone. You got the same critters. What you can't fake that. So, okay, now let's talk about Gonioceras. Really? So soon? Gonioceras, Greek with angle because of its shape, and horn, of course. Oceros means horn, like all cephalopods are. Okay. Black River, Mohawkian, Platteville. Black River's out in New York. Mohawkian and Platteville. Mohawkian is everywhere. Platteville's here. Possibly derived from Armenoceras. Here's an Armenoceras from Cape Calhoun. The type is Gonioceras anceps Hall, 1847. I've got the book. I finally got it. In poor shape, but I've got it. Now, here's right from plate 14, Hall, 1847, the first volume of Paleontology of New York, and I've got it. Look at the way these are photographed. Aperture down. So, being the investigative person that I am, I checked the entire book. The Black River, apertures are down. The Trenton, apertures are down. And they're also up. That's Hall. You see, nobody argued with Hall. He could do whatever the heck he wanted. But here's the neat thing about this. Here's the story in the story. In 1910, Grabau and Scheimer were going to do the first index fossils of North America in 2 volumes. Okay, most of you are familiar with Schreimer and Schrock, the 1 volume index fossils, which I consider still the best single invertebrate fossil book, period. I think it was 1946 or 1948. I can't remember, but it was the second one. Not many people know that. So Grabau and Schreimer said, well, and I remember this is way before Flower and before most of first day stuff. And they said, we have to put Gonioceras anceps in our book. But aperture down, that violates our feng shui. So what did they do? Rotated it 180 degrees. And you can see, the printing is different, but that's exactly the same critter. That's exactly the same. And so they put down Gonioceras anceps after Hall, not from Hall, but after Hall because they couldn't have the aperture down. They had to have the aperture up. Don't you just love paleontology? Good Lord. Okay, these are part of the actinosterid order. Tycher developed that in 1933. The family is from Hyatt. Includes, now the question mark, I'll explain that in a minute. Lambeosaurus, first day, 1917. Lambeosaurus is from the Arctic fauna. You can find it in the Stewartville. I've got several examples that I found. Possibly derived from actinoceras. You can see that over here. Wait, that's not the whole story. There's also was erected a family Lambeoceratida, flower 1957, which include Lambeosaurus. Oh, wait a minute, there's a question mark there. Okay, here's the rest of this story. Unfortunately, and I've got the book. Russo erected this in a non-peer reviewed journal. So the treatise 1964. There's the family. It includes flowers, Lambeosaurus tree. Well, there may be another reason for that, but we'll just say that it was a non-peer reviewed journal that he erected that. Okay, that's not the whole story. 2019, 2019, Barskoff and Merrick did a paper on Lambeosaurus, and they accepted the family that Russo erected. And there's Lambeosaurus. So there is always something more to the story, and it's just the more you get involved in this, the more you get involved in it. From the treatise, and this is taken, both of these on the left and the right are taken from Trotz's book that I got. I only put this in here from the treatise because it has a restoration, not a good one, of Gonioceras. But here's Lambeosaurus. Now, I'm not going to go into a big deal about Lambie, but if you look at the profile, and it looks exactly the same as Gonioceras without the wings. So these two guys are as closely related as you're ever going to get, and they're the only two. But Lambeosaurus is up in the Arctic fauna, the Red River, and Stewartville of the Galena up in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa is part of that is part of the Arctic fauna, and you can find Lambeosaurus there. Okay, here's the book, Mittelalter om Grönland. What they did was there was a bicentennial of Denmark getting Greenland, and they wanted to have a jubilee. So they had a big field trip and blah blah blah. This now again, this is in the 1920s. 1920s. Okay, so they said let's put out in our journal. By the way, this is Metallesser on Greenland is Communications on Greenland, and it's I've got it down here. It's published in Danish, English, French, and German. So you could pick up a journal and have all four languages in there. All right, let's do a survey of all the Ordovician fauna. So they got, I think he's a Swedish scientist, Gustav Trotzen, and oh yeah, I can do that. He chose for the first volume cephalopods. Well, God, come on, what else are you going to choose but cephalopods? This is the Ordovician. Did he do the rest? Yeah, he did a part two that had all the other faunas in it. It had the brachiopods, the trilobites, the gastropods, the corals, the one pelecypod in it. Yeah. Now let's look at some Goniosauruses. Here's the one, and there's only one species at Gonioceras Bay, but it must be really abundant. That's why they call it Gonioceras Bay. Gonioceras holtdalii. Now this is the 65th plate in the second volume that I showed you. It's a fold out. They wanted to do this guy as 1-to-1. When you fold it out, I can't show you how it's big. That's the actual size of the fossil. And you can see the three folds here, here, and here. Well, it's almost 100 years old. They had to put each one of those in there by hand with an adhesive. The thing came out like nothing. The adhesive was essentially non-existent. So I didn't ruin anything. I scanned it by not PDF, but by JPEG. And ladies and gentlemen, I know about where the two went together. I cannot see where the two went together. But there it is, right there. Gonioceras greenlandicum, the Greenland Gonioceras, 430 millimeters in length, 152 millimeters wide at the widest. Now you can see the living chamber is starting to decrease in size. Here is Gonioceras grundicum from Cape Calhoun. This is a natural section that they said they didn't tell you, but it's obvious. They kind of enhanced the siphuncle here, but you can see it's an expanded siphuncle, just like I'm sorry, just like Actinoceras that we have. Here's wolfi from Cape Calhoun, and here's at the bottom here is a section of it. You can see the convex. This is convex also. Sometimes it's straight in different species. Sometimes it's slightly convex. Here's Gonioceras occidentale from the Black River at Mineral Point. Here's the Trenton group from Platteville. These are the same things, same rocks, but we had to get the stratigraphy settled. It takes a while to do that. Here's from Dixon. Now, remember, this may not be from the quarry. There were a lot of road cuts at Dixon, a lot of road cuts that they had there, and small quarries. But anyway, and this is from the Platteville Dolomite in Platteville, Wisconsin. They still call it Dolomite instead of Dolostone. And here's the one from the cover, from the introduction. This is from, and you will see this occasionally, Homer, Illinois. Where's Homer, Illinois? Well, it doesn't exist. It's now called Troy Grove. I was actually in that quarry before it got eliminated. We didn't find that good. We found good stuff, but nothing like this. This is Gonioceras occidentale, published by First Day. Now, here's one from the present. This is from the Beloit West Quarry. I don't have a picture of the section, but I've got a picture of the rock pile that I found it on with Dennis Collada. We were both collecting there at the top, and we were allowed to go in. And it's Carl's quarry, and there it was, just sitting there, just like that, just sitting there. And I couldn't see the counterpart, so it during the previous winter, it got cracked, split, almost split again. And yes, believe it or not, I found that piece. I don't know. It's a gift or a curse. But here's a really nice Gonioceras occidentale. Okay, the morphology of Gonioceras: extremely depressed cont, ventral slightly convex to flat, dorsum convex, flattened shell aided in camouflage. I mean, it's sitting on the substrate in the bottom. It doesn't really have a you can't see it. You can't see it. The lateral sides meet at acute angles, so-called wings, or there's other names for it. No, it did not fly through the water. Ventral sutures are broad lobes. Dorsal sutures are broad lobes with central sails. I'll show you that. And I think that feature is unique to Gonioceras occidentale. It's never been reported in any Gonioceras ever. And I'll show you that. Oh, I just said that. Siphuncle segment short and inflated, aperture constricted, probably equipped with 10 colioid type arms. This is Bob Fry's. I grabbed this from his Gonioceras Fauna. I took it out and I gave him credit. Now, This is a specimen I found probably around 40 years ago at the State Line Quarry near South Beloit. And I found it at the with the venter point. I can't see my where you go. I found it this way, and I looked at it. It was just sitting on the rock. It got shot. Got shot. And I looked at it and I said, "Oh my God, look, there's a Zitaloceras in there. That's cool." And then I saw that there's a piece was broken off. Believe it or not, again, a curse. At the down there at the bottom of the rock, there it was. And so I grabbed it. Then I turned it over, and I had never seen the dorsum before on Gonioceras. They don't normally preserve, and I'll show you why in just a minute. And I looked at that, and there was this central saddle. There's the lobe, and you expect the same thing over here. You expect the lobe on this side, but you don't get it. You get partially a lobe, but then you get this. And I really think this is unique to occidentale. And here's a profile of it. Same specimen, by the way. Same specimen. The siphuncle occidentale has a fairly prominent venter that's not quite flat, but almost. And the dorsum, as you can see, is yeah. Guys, I know it looks like it could fly. It doesn't. Here's same quarry, Beloit West quarry. I'm sorry, same quarry as the first one that I showed. Here's the siphuncle. How did I get that? It took me a while, but I have nothing else to do but play with my cephalopods. And this is from the Beloit West quarry. And you can see the venter, the lobe. Here's another one from the State Line quarry. I got this. I was there when it was found. I didn't find it. I got it. The person that found it said, I found a trilobite. And I said, no. I said, that's a cephalopod. I said, a very unusual cephalopod. And he was disappointed. It's not a trilobite. I said, well, tough. Well, this is a family show. And here's one from the Beloit West Quarry. And you'll see several of these. Look at the size of that living chamber. And then you say to yourself, well, I kind of expect that because it's a very depressed conch. Where are you going to put the squishy bits? You got to put them somewhere. So you got to have room. And this had a fairly substantial living chamber. Here's the one I got third hand. This is from the Beloit West Quarry. Again, I know who collected it. I know it. And you can see the size of that living chamber. It's enormous. Here's the one Tom Williams got. I got both part counterpart. His didn't have the counterpart with it, but that's a really nice specimen. Really nice specimen. Now, do they occur in other units? Well, of course, they occur all through the Platteville. Here's a Cowan from the Lightsville quarry. I know it's not as good, but it's a Gonioceras. You got to note its occurrence. Here's another one from the same quarry in the Cowan. No living chamber on that one. Aperture up. Here's from the inlet quarry, the Mifflin. You can see the color is totally different. And let me make an aside that I have several times. If I had only two quarries, the Beloit West quarry and the inlet quarry, I would have found every single new genus and species that I have from those two quarries alone. The Beloit West quarry, I had to excavate the last couple of years, and I'll show you that in Expo coming up. And this quarry, there's water covering inside the entire quarry up to and above the Mifflin. So that's out. Now, here's one that I got from, again, the inlet quarry. the dorsum, and look, sure enough, there's that little saddle right there. I seriously think it's unique to Gonioceras occidentale. It never made the papers because the dorsums are so rare to get. Why are they rare to get? Life habits of Gonioceras. Gonioceras is not neutrally buoyant. Extremely depressed conch, very closely spaced septa, small chamber volume. There you go. That's 1 centimeter. That's 1 centimeter. And there's what? One, two, three, four, five, six chambers. I've got actinosteraces and endosteraces, especially endosteraces, where 1 centimeter is maybe just a little over one section. Well, there's no room in here for gas to lift that animal up. It lived on the substrate, the ocean floor. Lifestyle, originally referred to as a benthic crawler, and it may have done that. It could easily have done that with a fairly flat venter, and remember, it has the colioid arms. Okay. Uh, Confined to the substrate as an ambush predator, oftentimes I believe the posterior of the conch was buried. Now, the posterior of specimens often preserve venter and dorsum, but the anterior and body chamber often missing the dorsum. Why? I'll tell you that in a minute. Is an analog to flatfish like skates and rays. Large surface area prevented sinking into the substrate. I mean, it was beautifully designed for being on the substrate, on the ocean floor. It really was. Okay, this is from Kyle Hartshorn, an incredible artist. He did this for me over 10 years ago. So it has tentacles like, and again, this was not commonly known. He did a wonderful job. There's Zitaloceras. Now look, it's buried right here. If it fossilized, yeah, everything would fossilize, like that one from State Line Quarry or from Inlet. But right here, uh-uh, that's not that dorsum's not going to fossilize. And if more of it's sticking out, that dorsum's not going to fossilize. It's not buried. It's exposed. So that's the reason the dorsums are the backs of them are rarely found. But you saw what bonus I got from finding those and looking at those sutures and saying, "Oops, this isn't supposed to happen," but it does. Finally, concluding remarks. You have been a very nice audience. Thank you. Upper Midwest, Northwest Greenland supported a diverse Ordovician faunas. Okay, not clams, but sorry. Gonioceras, significant part of these faunas. Midwest Gonioceras fauna, diverse and abundant. Mollusks, particularly diverse. Brachiopods, trilobites, echinoderms, corals. Well, I can't think of their name now. The branching ones are common also. Gonioceras, extremely depressed, venter flat, dorsum convex, lateral sides meet at acute angles, flattened shell aided in camouflage, aperture constricted, confined to substrate as an ambush predator. Again, analog flatfish similar to skates and rays. Except they can swim because remember, they're not encumbered by an external shell. So there's your difference right there. And here's some references. Thank you very much. I will entertain questions for those that are still awake. Hi,
Very
Marv.
well done. Thank you,
I
John.
didn't have a chance
Um,
to say
I,
hi. Go ahead, Catherine.
um, I, I have to say, this is excellent and wonderful, but seeing your specimens in real life really shows the incredible size and scope and the detail. And I am really pleased that I had that opportunity. when you shared them, because you're right, it doesn't do justice to this. Yeah. So
Catherine,
I that was my first comment is, thank you for sharing them with the group in
that's
person.
that's the way the Platteville is. You saw my Oncocerid program, how beautiful those. And again, they're Steinkerns, admittedly, no shell. But honestly, you can count on one hand the number of Ordovician nautiloids that have ornamentation. They're not many. Most of them are smooth. So the shell is going to do you very little in defining. The siphuncle, everything else that you can see on the Steinkern is. I was lucky. The Platteville is the perfect rock for finding these mollusks in the rock layer without shell. You can just pop them right out. I was very fortunate to start working in the Platteville. I take your comment. Yes, the Platteville is just incredible. And can you imagine going back in time and seeing these critters in the ocean? It would be unbelievable.
Jen, can you stop sharing your screen so we can
Oh, sure. Okay, how do I do that? Oh my God.
it
You are
should
now
be.
screen. Oh, stop.
Thank you. So I am going to throw you for a loop here. I'm going to ask you about the clams. Why is there any theory on why there were no clams in present?
The Greenland one.
Yeah.
I read it, and they were all the collectors, the describers, Trotzen. They were all like, "What the heck's happening here?" Because I mean, the clams aren't super common in the Platteville, but those of you that have collected with me, especially at Inlet Quarry, you know how many clams you can pop out. I've got a coquina of clams from the Inlet Quarry. It's amazing. They found one at Greenland. They don't know why and you're right, Catherine. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Hmm.
I mean, you look at the. I looked at the snails. They look just like the ones from the Platteville, and there's some differences. Obviously, we're Greenland's a long way away, but and the trilobites, same critters. I looked at them. One clam.
Wow.
Yeah, I if listen, believe me, if Trotzen couldn't figure it out, I'm not gonna figure it out.
We have a common question from the chat.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot of the quarries are no longer accessible. Do you know any anyone, no, sorry, know that, and know any that one can still collect at? I don't think so. But
No.
yeah, and I think that person's long gone. Yep.
Um, there's one that I know the owner. He's a I know I know you look at that, but he's an older gentleman, older than I am, and we got struck up a relationship. And he says, oh yeah, he's come in the quarry. It's a Platteville quarry. There's nothing there. So the quarry I can get into, there's nothing
It's
there.
Nephosaurus.
Yeah. Now, I've done this, and I'll do it at Expo on my program. At one time, they weren't all this as good, but I had 24 quarries in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. I didn't go into Minnesota or Iowa, just 24 quarries that would let me in. They knew me. Byron knew me. And Jill was originally there as the for the scale, and I knew her really, really well. And she said, "Let's do this. Let's have you sign a document at the beginning of the year, and it'll be good for the year. Give us a call. We'll see. If we're not working down there, come on in. No problem." But they were very explicit in saying, You're the only one. I had to fight to get Dennis Collada in there, and he's a professional from the survey. So that's what I was. Okay. That being said, there's now one quarry that I could get into if I wanted to, not much there in Illinois, and one up in Wisconsin. I haven't been to it this year. It's a little far away, but I got some real good stuff from there at the surface where they're stripping. But to get a field trip in, to get other people in, it isn't going to happen. Uh, I got people in. I got ESCONI in several. I got them in inlet quarry. I got maps in quarries back in the late '70s, early '80s. Not now. Sorry, Keith, but no. Can I take a second or so? I got to take my pills that are keeping me alive, apparently. At least that's what I'm told. Okay, I'm alive.
So you mentioned something, and I have to say it threw me a little bit that there's some nautiloids that were grazers and filter feeders.
Oh, God,
And
yeah.
I've always thought of them as the more predatory.
Everybody does. Catherine, you are not alone. But here's the deal. And again, I refer to that slab. There are as many of those little nautiloids as snails. And then you've got the swimmers, the actinocerids, the orthocerids, the endocerids, the small endocerids, the coiled guys, the plectocerids. Are they all going to be predators? What are they going to eat? Eventually, seriously, eventually all the food would be gone. So, no. And this was brought up quite in the early 80s. Oh, who did it? It was from the British Royal Society. They had one of their meetings, and he did a paper, and he said, Nautiloid success. Why are they successful? Because they do different things. Yes, you're right. A lot of them are predators. All the ones that went, yeah, are up in the, yeah, those are all predators. Some grazed, some filter fed in the substrate. There were mud feeders. Some that had good sized chambers and no deposits would be actually floating in the plankton, and they would filter out planktonic food, just like many of the animals do today. So, and you're right, that is one of the real big things that I have when I talk about these to clubs and stuff. I have to say, look, they weren't all predators. I know they are today, for the most part, but not back then. There's just too many of them. I mean, there's more nautiloid species in the Platteville than well, there's a lot of coleoid, but getting close to the number of species of all cephalopods alive today.
Yeah.
So, they have to do different things, and it is a shock to many people. But he did that in his. Oh, good question. They had a radula. Most probably they had a radula that allowed them to scrape the algae off the rocks. They probably didn't have the beaks were probably non-existent or very small, but they had a radula just like the polyplecophorans do today at in the Pacific. They actually eat the rock by using their radula to grunt. There are islands that are at the water level. They're inundated. All that rock has been processed by these polyplecopherans in the ocean floor in the Pacific there. So probably a radula where they would scrape the I don't know if they would have gill-like things for mud filtering or filtering up in the plankton, but we don't have the gushy bits from these guys. We don't have anything like that. Some say we do, even with but you got to take that with a grain of salt. I mean, you look at those things, well, yeah, maybe that's the stomach. Yeah, maybe that's the gills. I don't know. But we don't know. We don't know their internal anatomy. Again, I know the butterfly effect. I'm very aware of that. But going back into the Ordovician and plucking out one or so of every species to analyze, just one. Just one. That's all you need. You dissect it and see what kind of stuff's inside there. And yes, I know the butterfly effect, but I'd be willing to do it. I really would. Just give me a time machine and oxygen. Anyway, I digress. Other questions, please?
There are a couple other chat questions.
Okay.
One is, did they back into the substrate, or
Yes.
did they wiggled backwards into the substrate to bury?
Shells don't wiggle.
Well, okay. So they
They just,
pushed.
all they did, I'm not being, Catherine, come on. No, they just use their siphon and poof, 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 like that. No, and yes, they couldn't see back there. They just assumed they were now in the substrate. Did it always work? Probably not. Did they get eaten then? Probably. But that's what they did. Again, remember, they had these coleoid fleshy arms, 10 of them, that they can move around easier than with the tentacles. So they could do some movement. But yeah, they just use a siphon, push themselves in, probably until they saw some of the mud come over the shell. And then, of course, the wave action would take the mud off of their part of their shell. But again, we're speculating because we don't know. We have no analogs, really. You can say, oh, we have the skates and the rays. Ah, bull crap. You don't have. It's not an analog to Gonioceras. Gonioceras had a huge shell. The others don't. So, I mean, we can make generalizations and analyses, but not unless you go back and see them. Are you going to be able to see how that guy lived? And all the nautiloids, and to see them in the on the ocean floor, moving around, boom, 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 saltating all over. Again, I
So
digress.
another question is, did any and I'm not gonna say it, Gunnonostrus ever preserve with the shell?
Possibly in New I all of the ones I've seen are Steinkerns, and you saw the pictures I had from New York and from I don't if Joe's still there. Joe, are you
Yeah,
familiar with any Goniaceras from the Black River in New York that had the shell attached?
no,
Yeah.
no. And to the point even that it is, I don't think it's on anybody's radar screen in New York State.
Yeah,
That to me is you're in that heaven here. In the Black River area, just by what you see in shows and things of that nature, it's always that big coiled gastropod, that macrolides.
yeah.
That's about it. That's about it.
It's you might think I can't believe this that the Goniaceras shell was fairly thin, but I know it lived on the substrate, but it's going to encounter, things in if it's moving around, it's going to encounter obstacles. It could run over a gastropod or something, and that could hurt the shell. So I got a feeling that the shell was fairly substantial. Now, that being said, it's almost assuredly made of aragonite. And aragonite dissolves much, 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 much easier than calcite. Again, my theory that sifuncles were started to be made out of calcite to be more substantial, and they can survive fossilization where the shell can't. So, again, we're all of this is speculation, And I have more speculation than most people. So, yeah.
So there's another question. What was
Okay.
the function of the siphuncle if not for buoyancy control?
Oh, the siphuncle still removed the fluid. It had to. It is forced. It has no choice. It has to remove the fluid, which makes the shell a little bit more maneuverable, but it doesn't. There's not enough space. You saw the sections. There's not enough space in there for the air or well, it's carbon dioxide to buoy up the shell. The others, yeah, Endoceras, small ones, Actinoceras especially. They were buoyed, and that's why they needed the deposits to keep them horizontal, because they would be like baculites. They would be horizontal, bouncing up and down. And that's okay for baculites because really, who cares about it? But it's not good for the nautiloids in Ordovician. They have to be horizontal. So, but it would remove the fluid. Maybe not in the same or at the same rate or whatever, but it would remove it. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all.
Another question. Are they always discovered dorsal side?
They're discovered. They're discovered with the venter fossilized. Now, because you're in, first of all, you're in the Platteville isn't, perfectly sedate. I mean, there were currents and stuff in there that could turn it over. But for the most part, they fossilize with their venter. Now, you won't know that unless you excavate, because when they shoot the quarry, the fossil can be in any orientation it wants. The one that I found with Dennis, uh, it was the whole fossil was just literally staring me in the face, because I was here. Here's the hill, and I'm looking. Oh, eye level Gonioceras. Thank you. That was a good specimen. And I looked and looked, and I didn't find the counterpart. The counterpart you can use, and I've seen, like I said, the one I've got from that one that I got third party, and I looked at the counterpart, and there's growth lines, but it's a fairly smooth shell. So once again, there's no character. The ammonoids and the ammonites mainly. Ammonites often had just smooth shells too, but the ammonites had just they had ornamentation, nodes, and all sorts of stuff, wackadoodle stuff, all over them. And there's various reasons for that. I'm not going to go into because I don't agree with most of them. But yeah, the nautiloids, they were just smooth shell, just getting along in the ocean floor, having fun. I want to go back. Other
Have
questions,
you
please. Other questions.
have you found a small one?
Oh, you mean hmm. I think I have found some small fragments. But the smallest that I found that went back to the smallest apical end was probably that one I showed you from Lee Center, the one that had the dorsum, that had the lobe thing on it. That probably was most of the time, and this is, and I have found them in small amounts, but surprisingly, and this is what really blows my mind. I gave you a nice description of why the dorsum doesn't fossilize, but I found small ones with no dorsum either. I don't know what's going on with Gonioceras, but you can count on one hand the number of dorsums that I have that you can detect stuff with. And I've got several of them over here in my displays that I use. So about one hand or a little bit more of dorsums that actually fossilized. And you can imagine the number that I found after 60 years of collecting. So it's just one of those things, in paleontology, many of you know that collect and some of you publish and stuff. You never know what you expect. You take what you get and don't lament. Oh, gee, I wish I had this. Well, you don't. Put on your big boy pants and publish. So you're not if you with more collecting you might find it, but there's no guarantee. Everybody knows that. You know how collecting is. It's random. You count yourself lucky. And when I saw that Gonioceras, even though it's technically a fragment, a good fragment, and nothing else there, I was elated. Dennis, look what I found. Oh, I missed it. Yeah. You see, you got to accept what you get because it's a gift. It's a gift. And make sure you put those gifts in a museum for other people to look at or to have scientists look at. Um, okay, I'm getting off my soapbox now. Ugh.
I'm going to stop the recording, but we can continue with the questions and everything.
Oh, you continue as long as you want. If you have other things to do,
Oh, no,
uh,
we're continuing.
okay, because
I just wanted to
ladies and
stop the
gentlemen,
recording.
there are no Big Ten volleyball games on.